All right, sequels or remakes, right? I feel like all the movies that have come out nowadays or have so far throughout the decade have been either sequels or remakes of movies. Mostly sequels. Remakes, I think, um, aren't really as popular. I think it's just Disney that does the remakes of their movies. So yeah, but I'll still mention them anyway. I feel like throughout my life, my 22 years of life, so not very long one, but throughout my 22 years of life, I don't think I've seen many original movies come out. I've seen Paranorman and Obsession, and I think that's it. Oh, and I saw Princess and the Frog when I was a little kid. So that's basically it. All the other movies that I've ever seen in movie theater have either been a sequel to another movie or a remake of a movie. Right? I have not seen many original movies in theaters at all. Not at all, but really very few. And I feel like it's kind of a symptom of how things are nowadays. People say, the 2010s are great and all that. And listen, I lived through the 2010s, and it was cool. It was cool for a while, but it kind of felt like going from the top and then kind of slowly sliding down. And then 2016 happened, and it went even faster. I think ever since I was a kid, it's really been mostly all about remakes, sequels, because studios don't tend to want to take risks on movies these days. Or really ever, really, if we're being honest. Movie companies, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and so on, have not really taken risks on movies. I think since 2000s, and I'm guessing it has something to do with the 2008 financial crisis, which I was there for. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but they elected Obama, and I remember that was some cool shit that happened. But I didn't remember anything else that happened uh, outside of being a little kid at that time. But I assume that the 2008 financial crisis had something to do with it. Um, Going into entertainment. I don't think I entered the theater until 2009, so I can't really speak for anything that happened beforehand. Honestly, I don't remember anything that happened before 2008. I don't think anyone does. I have very vague memories of that period, but from what I could tell, growing up in that time period, it was like a very slow decline, and then suddenly everything just dropped. And I think it really affected the movie industry the most. Like, people say music is incredibly affected, but that's really all the popular stuff. If you ever look on the charts, it's usually never very good. Um, you'd think like with all the streaming shit that goes on, people would have finally learned that the charts are not um reliable sources for popularity. They never have. They haven't been reliable sources until 1991 when they made SoundScan. Before that, they were just guessing. You know, the first heavy metal album to reach number one was Quiet Riot's Metal Health, but Pyromania by Def Leppard came out uh, in January of that year, and Metal Health, if I am correct, came out in June of that year. Am I correct? No, it came out in February. Never mind. Quite right. Mental Health came out on February 28th, 1983, and Def Leppard's Pyromania came out on January 20th, 1983, and somehow Def Leppard didn't make it to number one because Michael Jackson's Thriller was on the was at number one at that time. But somehow Quiet Riot, the shitty band from LA, managed to knock MJ off the charts at when they did it, when they had the album out. Granted, Mental Health did reach number one until November of '83. It was like a very slow burn for them. But somehow they beat Def Leppard because sales, which they couldn't even chart. You know, you can't really chart sales. Or you couldn't chart sales back then because, you know, people were still trading records and doing all that. For all we know, Def Leppard really had the first heavy metal album reach number one, but for some reason it's Quiet Riot that gets all the acclaim because the managers and the record execs guessed that they made it to number one. I lost the entire point of my video here. I don't remember what I was talking about. I completely fucked it up. How could I have done this? Oh, and I remember now. Quality is quality. Yeah, the music quality, people say, is worse now because the charts aren't showing us good artists. But you never look for good artists. I dropped my mic. You never look for good artists on the charts. I don't think I've ever really looked at the charts for new music at all. I always paid attention to the charts when I was looking up old bands like Def Leppard, just because I thought it was kind of interesting to see, especially between 1982 and 1984 when MJ released Thriller, because it was so interesting to see all these different groups who made albums who, if MJ hadn't released Thriller, would have definitely hit number one, like Pyromania and Van Halen's 1984. But you'll ever look for quality on a chart, you have to hear it for yourself. And I think the same thing goes to music, which is that, you know, you'll look for quality from a critic, you look for quality from your ears. And the same thing goes to movies. You have to go for quality where you hear it or see it. You know quality when you see it or hear it, experience it. The people who make movies, these directors who have been around for ages, and the movie execs who don't make any art whatsoever, do not understand how quality works. They don't, or have kind of forgotten how quality works. Because if there's anything we as the audience are guilty of, it's spending money on movies that don't need sequels, right? Like, let's take the Star Wars sequels, for example. I saw the Star Wars sequels when they came out. And, you know, it was kind of the same thing, like I said. It started like a good place, and they could have built off. Yeah, it was kind of like a remake of New Hope. It was fine. It was okay. And it slowly went down, and then at some point it just tanked. Because the executives at Disney and Lucasfilm were thinking about the big bucks. They weren't thinking about quality. And the same thing went with DC at that time. They weren't thinking about quality. They were thinking about how can we make as much money as possible. Hence why the DCEU is some of the worst movies I ever made, in my opinion. I don't like them at all. Except maybe Man of Steel and Blue Beetle. But we as the audience are guilty of this too, because we see these movies. We basically tell the executives that we like these movies based on how much we are willing to spend for it. It doesn't really matter if the movie is good or bad if people are willing to pay for it. and they know this, the executives. That's why they keep pumping out movies about Batman and Superman and Iron Man and Captain America and I don't know, whoever else or you can think of. Why did Disney make the Indiana Jones 5 when there didn't even need to be a fourth one, right? It was because of money, and people saw it. I saw it. I liked it. It was okay, but it didn't need to happen. But people voted with their wallets, and they said, we want to see this. No, maybe I'm wrong about that, but they wouldn't have done it if they didn't think they could make money off of it. I would think Indiana Jones at the Death Sea is the worst Indiana movie. It's probably Temple of Doom. And, I kind of like Temple of Doom, but I have issues with it, and I could talk about it in another video because I want to focus on what I'm making now and not get distracted like I just did talking about Def Leppard and Quiet Riot. Okay, so I just looked it up. Dial of Destiny made $384 million at the box office. I wish I had $384 million. The budget was 352 to 419 million. Okay, so they did not make as much money as I thought they did. That is actually, I didn't know that. I guess it means they're not going to make any more Indiana Jones movies then. Probably for the best. But like I said, my point still stands that the executives don't see quality with their eyes. They see it in their wallets. So long as their wallets are full, they'll keep making movies, right? Like Spider-Man is going to come out next month, and I want to see it. I will admit that I want to see Spider-Man Brand New Day. Kind of. I don't know if I will. If I'll definitely see it, but I'm interested. But it's a sequel. It's an unnecessary sequel, for being honest. Like, why do we really care about what happens to Spider-Man after No Way Home, when we can already guess that he's basically just going to go back to how he was at the beginning, where we saw him in was it Far From Home? Oh no, it was Homecoming, right? I don't know why they titled the movies like that. Shouldn't it have been the other way around? I don't know. But there's no need for a Spider-Man sequel. We could already infer how it's going to go. It's just going to be Spider-Man struggling to be a superhero. Again. As if that hasn't been done over and over again. As if we don't have 2.5 or 2 or 3/4 of a trilogy telling us about Spider-Man struggling to be a superhero. And look, I like Spider-Man, but do we need that? Do we really need Brand New Day? I don't think we need Brand New Day. It'd be cool to watch, I'll admit. Like I said, I'm interested in seeing it, but it's not necessary. We don't need to see Spider-Man kicking ass. There's already 8 movies about him doing that, and a TV show, multiple TV shows about him doing that. There's no need for more of him doing that, But people will definitely see it. There's also people who talk about sequels to comedy movies that wouldn't age or wouldn't have been received as well today. I think, like, people mentioned making White Chicks 2. I saw the first one. And I liked it. It was funny, but I don't think there needs to be a sequel to it. There's no reason for it. I mean, how would they even get into a position where they'd have to do it again, right? Point is, though, that it's not a necessary sequel. There's no reason for it beyond nostalgia, right? And if the sequel comes out, let's be real, people would hate it they will compare it unfavorably to the original and talk shit about it over and over and over again, as they do every time an unnecessary sequel is made, because the consumer said we want this, and then the artist said here it is, because they need the money too and they want to make a quick buck, and then the consumer hates it because the artist didn't do it because they really wanted it. They just wanted to make some money off it and saw an opportunity, and so the cycle just happens over and over again. You know, like, it's kind of stupid when you think about it, how they keep doing this and how we keep allowing it to happen. You know, movie audiences will demand an unnecessary sequel and then get mad when the unnecessary sequel comes if it doesn't live up to the standards of their nostalgia. And the nostalgia is always over dramatizes just how good the original was. Like I said, White Chicks 2, I liked it, but it wasn't that good. Like the way I heard about it, they made it sound like it was the best comedy movie of all time, and when I watched it, I felt kind of disappointed. Not because it was bad, but because it was hyped up to where I thought it was gonna be like one of those really great movies that you can get enough of, and I don't really care to ever see it again. Again, not because it was bad. It just didn't live up to the image of it that I painted in my head because of the nostalgia that people have for it, which sucks, right? Like, I don't want to talk shit about it because it was funny. I like Terry Crews in the movie. He was very funny. I just didn't really get it, I guess, why it was that funny. No, what was it about that movie at that time that made people think that it was so great? I don't know. That's my point, right? It's nostalgia. It's nostalgia, and it's people recognize that they could take advantage of it, of the nostalgia, and they flooded the movies with nostalgia. Disney especially flooded it with all the remakes of their animated movies, which are completely unnecessary. I mean, if you were to look up the amount of money they poured into these movies, these remakes, they could have made so many original movies just on half of that. I mean, they could have had so many classics if they had actually tried to make something original. Maybe. I don't know if they would have, but they should have tried. Remakes are so fucking stupid. I don't understand the point of the remake. Why would you remake a movie that has already been done? The idea has been put out there. People have heard it or watched it. People have watched The Lion King. They watched Mulan. They watched Cinderella. You don't need to remake those movies. They are already out there. Just make a new movie. Why does a Little Mermaid need to exist? They've already made it. You can make a new character and make tons of money off of that. People will love that. But it's safe and it's nostalgic. People would rather spend money on nostalgia than take a chance on something new. Why play the risky? Why play your cards? Why place your bets on something that you don't know is going to pay off when you could put your money on something that is going to make money? But now, because they've done it so much, people are sick and tired of the sequels and the remakes to the point where now they don't even make money, which is fascinating. Like, I thought the nostalgia thing would have lasted for way longer than it did. I would have thought that maybe it would have lasted, I don't know, another 5-10 years, or at least at least to the end of the decade, that they would have kept doing it. But people are sick of it now. They're done with the sequels now, or not. I think there are still people who are willing to hold out. But I think people are sick and tired of it now that Obsession and Backrooms have come out. Now the studio executives are scrambling because now they know that people are interested in seeing these sequels and remakes, and that they want real original movies, especially for the younger generations. Like, I want to see movies that reflect the time that I live in, not the times of the 90s and the 50s and the 70s and the 60s and the 80s and the 2000s and all these other times that I am not a part of because I wasn't there for it. And how can I relate to any of this or want to even watch it if I wasn't there for it, man? I need to see movies about my time, this time. Now I need to see movies about how I am living, or at least movies that reflect an aspect of my time. It doesn't have to be completely rooted in reality, but it has to have some sort of aspect that I can relate to. I cannot relate to the sequels and the remakes, so I'm not going to spend time trying to understand it because it's going to have references that I'm never going to be able to understand because I wasn't there for it. Like, imagine 20 years, let's say the Knicks win tonight. At the time that I'm recording this, which is Saturday 13th. Now let's say the Knicks win the championship, and 20, 30 years down the line, someone makes a movie about it. You know, people who are like really big into the basketball, and, you know, they make a reference to the Knicks or whatever. You know, the Knicks winning a championship after 50 years. Do you think people are going to relate to that after if the Knicks win it? If the Knicks win it tonight, or if they don't win it tonight and they win it in 6 or 7, assuming that they win, which you know I hope they do, but assuming that they do win, are people in the 20 to 30 years going to be able to relate to that feeling of waiting 50 years for a championship? No, they're not going to relate to that. And why would they want to hear about it? You know, why would they want to want to hear or try to relate to something that they weren't there for? You know, I wasn't there for this 50 years of not winning the championship. I wasn't there for it. You know, I understand it because I'm living it in some aspect, but I'm not feeling it as much as fans that have been around for it since the beginning. And if the Knicks win it, who's going to relate to it after the fact? You know, what person my age in 20 years is going to relate to that feeling of waiting 50 years for the Knicks to win, right? But they'll try and sell the nostalgia to us. And I have to get back to the movies because I want to keep getting off track. But these executives in the movie industry have spent all this money on nostalgia, and now they're finding out that nostalgia isn't going to sell anymore. But they haven't spent any money on anything that's not nostalgia related. Obsession was independently done, and Backrooms was done by A24. Hollywood, the industry, not me, but the industry has not spent any money or very little money on originality. You know, you could say all that you want about the Writers Guild and whatever, but they weren't really working on trying to make original ideas, really. And if they were, they weren't getting accepted. Right? When's the last time Disney came up with something completely original, completely on their own, without having to you know, trying to reference things that they've already done? How many times has Warner Brothers done that, or Paramount, or ABC? I don't know if ABC makes movies, but you know, TV shows still count too, right? I can still refer to TV shows. Point is that they haven't really banked on any of that shit. They haven't banked on trying to be original or making anything original and current to this time. Even Andor, right? Like I liked Andor a little bit. I haven't seen it since it came out. I'll have to rewatch it. but it's not original. It's set in a universe that has been around now for 50 years. It has its roots very deep in already. If Andor had been an original TV show, it would have been well more received because it would have been relatable to a lot more people if it had been part of a fucking space opera. And it's not to say that the quality isn't good. The point is that it's not rooted in anything as original. It's that if they had made up an entirely new world where Andor's storyline could have taken place, to put it in Star Wars, because they didn't want to take a real risk on that kind of story. They wanted to put it in something that was safe enough where if it failed, it could be buried. Because Star Wars is so big already. And it's not like Star Wars is going to do good. Now that The Mandalorian and Grogu has basically failed commercially. And they're going to bury that for sure. They put it in Star Wars because they knew that they didn't want to take a chance on something that was completely original and completely on its own. Something that didn't need to be a part of any sort of larger, already established story. It needed to be something that had or was attached to something else, just in case, because they need nostalgia to market these things. They've forgotten how to market something that is completely original. Like Masters of the Universe came out, but that's not original. There was a TV show about it, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that till recently. No, I just thought it was some goofy ass thing that was there, and I wasn't interested in that either. But I have to be interested in everything that comes out. But yeah, they basically banked on the idea that nostalgia would sell forever, and now that it's not selling, they're panicking. And they're going to try to come up with something original, but they haven't put any time or energy into it, so even if they do manage to come up with something, it's going to fall flat on its face the first few times, because that's how things work, Usually, you'd have to try a few times. Obsession and Backrooms are the exception, not the rule, just to be clear, I'm not trying to bring the people down, whoever was making it. I don't want to bring them down, but they were lucky, basically. And the industry is not going to be lucky. They're going to follow their rules, and they're going to try and do originality how they want to do it, and they will fail a few times before they get back up, and by the time they get back up, they're going to be behind. And it's basically how it's going to go. I think that in the end, what we've seen in the movie industry is that nostalgia sells, and it will sell for a very long time, but it will not sell forever. Eventually, people are going to get sick of being sold the same stories, and they're going to expect something new. I don't care how well The Odyssey does. The Odyssey is not a story that I think everybody's going to be into. It's not going to be a story that people will be like, yeah, this is totally relatable to my time. Or this is going to be something worth spending my money on, unless you're a big fan of Christopher Nolan. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. I'm trying to make a point here, which is that the nostalgia is not selling anymore. People are tired of it. I'm very tired of it, even though I'm going to be a hypocrite and watch Spider-Man, maybe, or the Looney Tunes movie when it comes out at the end of the summer. And Supergirl, I don't know if Supergirl counts as being a sequel or being completely unoriginal. Somebody could let me know on that. But basically, the root point that I'm trying to make is that the sequel era, the remake era of the movie industry has come to an end, and we're gonna keep seeing that. We saw it with Star Wars, we saw it with Indiana Jones, and I think we'll see it with superheroes next. Not necessarily because they should fail, but because people are gonna want to eventually see something that's relatable to them. And it's basically how I see it. Am I right? I don't know. Only time will tell how things turn out. But I imagine that I will be right in some aspects. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say about that. See ya.